Senegal.
Jana tu kero basona manga jangale gita do bouger do faywe. Nge élèves te tolo ci examen linga sarla amna fita mo gëna.
Sur Ecoles.
May. With may, it's the same as can. May is the same as can. Why is it the same? Because with may, you can use it to either ask or and give permission. You can either ask or give permission. And may is also formal. It's formal. It's formal. Let's give an example of may. Of may. What is an example of may that we can use? Let's see. May I have your passport? May I have your passport? That is asking in a much more polite way. May I have your passport? May I sit, please? You may photocopy this book. That's a permission. You may photocopy this book. You may photocopy this book. You see that is a permission. Now let's go to obligation. An obligation. Obligation. Obligation means it's a must. It's something that you have to do. It's something that you have to follow. That is an obligation. It's compulsory. It's not, you don't have a choice about it. It's a compulsory thing. That's an obligation. Obligation means a must. Must. Another similarity to obligation is compulsory. It's compulsory. That's another similarity, another way of saying an obligation. You're obliged to do it. An obligation. And what are some of the words that you use in an obligation? You have two. The first one is have to. Have to. And of course, in the past tense, had to. When you want to talk about the past tense, had to. Had to. Had to. Had to. Have to, it means it's a rule. When you talk about have to, it means it's a rule that comes outside the speaker. It's a rule that has to be followed. It's not made by you, but it's something that is outside the speaker. Speaker outside means it's out of me. You come in and you have a rule that you want to follow. For example, what's an outside rule? Oh, you have to, let's say, we have to put on uniform. You have to put a uniform to school. You have to put a uniform to school. Another have to. What else is another have to? Have to. They have to give in their homework by 5 p.m. Have to. What about had to? I had to be on time in school yesterday. So you have to and you have must. 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 So oftentimes must is personal. Must. For obligations, you have to and you have must. I must be on time today. So it's a personal decision to be on time. I must be on time today. I must be on time at work today. At work today. You know, I have a deadline I must finish. I have a deadline I must finish. You know, Paul and Mary must not leave the house. Paul and Mary must finish the vegetables. So these are rules that you make. It's a must, it's an obligation that talks about the speaker, him or herself. It's about the speaker. Whereas have to, it's a rule that you follow. Have to. I have to park my car here. I have to park here. I have to be there on time. She has to have her medications. Have to. That's an obligation. Of course, has, I told us that has is a third person singular of he or she, you know. So have to and must is when you follow rules. Must is obligation, but something that you follow. I must be there. She must have her hair combed. I must do my homework. Must. Must is something that is an obligation. It's a strong obligation. It's, you know, it means, you know, and it's a necessity. Must, it's much more a strong way of an obligation. And it's a necessity. So you must do it. It means you really don't have a choice about it. That's the problem with must. You don't have a choice about it. It's oftentimes a necessity. And then what we have, the no obligation, which you don't really have to if you don't want to. It's almost like you're having a choice of not wanting to. And so oftentimes you use don't have to. You know, you don't have to oftentimes if you don't want to. So it's an obligation. But with must, so there's one example now. You must have your mask on during this pandemic. That's an example of must. It's an obligation. It's not a choice. And it's an obligation that you must have it. And so but with no obligation, you don't have to. You don't have to have your vegetables if you don't want to. You don't have to eat your vegetables. You don't have to eat. You don't have to have a tie. You don't have to put on a tie. You don't have to put on a tie to work, for example. You don't have to put on a tie. You don't have to tie your hair. I don't necessarily have to go to work today. I don't necessarily, because no obligations means you don't really necessarily have to do anything. And oftentimes you use don't have to. Whereas here it's have to. But don't, because it's negative, you don't have to. Thank you.
Senegal.
Jana tukero basona manga jangale gita do bouger do fay wer nga élève te tollu ci examen li nga soxla am na fi te mu gën